Hey, Ayurveda Every Day with Talia. It's Talia. How are you? So, I have been collecting from all of you a very long list now of topics that you're interested in learning about. So, feel free to always put that into our group of what you most want to learn. Hey, Amy, you made it. And I was just looking at one of my lists and said, "Hi, I'm Pitta. I want to know how I could be using Ayurveda. I'm Kapha. I want to know how I should be using Ayurveda. I'm Vata." And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a Facebook Live about how to support your individual dosha, which is your constitution, your elemental constitution according to Ayurveda, through food, through Ayurvedic practices, and through daily routines, or what I call daily supportive practices. So I'm going to start by talking about the doshas themselves just a little bit. I know there's a lot of you who already know your dosha in this group, and there's some of you who are pretty new to Ayurveda and still trying to figure things out. So, with the Vata dosha, Vata, we are in Vata season, by the way. This fall is Vata season. So there's a Vata, a cold and dry influence on everyone at this time of year, especially if you're in the northern hemisphere. Um, and Vata is comprised of air and ether. Air and ether is cold, it's dry, it's light. It's even can become so dry that we call it rough, where skin is breaking open, or you can't retain fluid, or you're so dry that like your lips are constantly chapped, things like that. So when you're Vata predominant, you tend to notice that in your constitution, how you've always been, even when you were a little kid, you have always had some of these elements of cold, light, dry, rough, subtle. But it's like, but what does that mean? So it's really beneficial to look at the symptoms that are associated with each dosha. So I've kind of alluded to this, but dry skin, dry lips, dry eyes, even dry vaginally, like not being able to get juicy when you're turned on, but and you want to have sex, but you're not getting juicy enough for it to feel good. Those are symptoms of Vata because dryness is exclusive to the Vata dosha. Now, another thing that is exclusive to the Vata dosha is cold to the bone. So if you tend to get cold, but I mean, you get freezing cold, where once you get cold, it's really hard for you to warm up again, that's most likely Vata. Um, there, each dosha shares some qualities in common, and I'll get to that as well. But if you are resonating with what I'm talking about, and you're like, wow, yeah, I really feel a lot of cold, light, dry in my constitution, then Vata may be your dosha. It may also be your current imbalance. Like, do you hear on my throat? If you've heard me speak before, you might notice that my voice sounds a little bit scratchy or hoarse. Like, I traveled a lot this past weekend, and I was in a very rigorous training that I was a staff member for. So there was a lot expected of me, and it was drying because it was a little bit stressful. I was in a hotel all weekend, and so I'm still kind of recovering from that and drinking a lot of fluids, eating all warm, soupy foods. I'm making sure I'm putting, really good quality body oil all over my body. I'm doing it, but if I'm going to be real as your teacher and, the leader of this group, I'm like, oh, like this is helping me notice that I have this dryness because I didn't notice this earlier this morning. And now I am like, okay, I've got to go a little bit deeper. And one thing I want to say is that when dryness is really prevalent, that's, I want that to be for you a little alarm bell going off of, you got to protect your immunity, and your immune system cannot be protected when it's dry, because your immune system is a fluid based system, and you need it to be fluid for it to do its good work. So, I'm even having this, like, in talking to you, I'm realizing, okay, I'm gonna, when I get off this Facebook Live today, I'm gonna make some ginger tea. I'm going to look at what are my immune boosting herbs, like ginger, turmeric, garlic, vitamin C. There's a product that I absolutely love. I drink it almost every day, but I haven't drunk it today, and I didn't have it yesterday, called Truly Natural Vitamin C. It's by Health Force Nutritionals. I'm putting it in the comments box. So, I'm just getting some symptoms that are letting me know what I need to do. And that's really a foundational piece for this Facebook Live, is when you're supporting your dosha through food, Ayurveda, and daily supportive practices, the first step is you being self-aware and you identifying a symptom as vata, pitta, or kapha. So in a certain sense, it doesn't even matter what your constitution is, your primary constitution. We could also practice Ayurveda based on what imbalance is currently most prevalent in your body, psyche, emotional realm. So I'll keep going with this idea of identifying symptoms. I just talked about this inside of my RAD cleanse program, my seasonal Ayurvedic detox program, that stands for Radiance Ayurveda Detox. We were just having a live bonus call about the emotions, and how emotions are going to always come up when you're cleansing or detoxing or transforming your body, your life, your mind, your mindset, etc. And the vata set of emotions include fear, anxiety, indecision, hyperactivity, and grief. So, sometimes we think of grief as, and shame could be in there as well. We often think of grief as like this real heavy emotion, because it's just, we feel so sad, and when you're in it, it kind of can overtake you. Like, I think of it as, going swimming in the ocean and feeling like you've got everything together, and then a wave of grief comes and it just sucks you down into the depths of the ocean, and you're like, am I ever going to come up for air? Can feel really heavy, but vata can feel that heaviness too, because the lungs are a vata organ, and the lungs store grief. So, I'm saying a lot of different things for today's live, but my point in sharing that is, we get to learn Ayurveda, number one, as what am I feeling? Number two, of where does that particular symptom or feeling or emotion fit into the organizational principles of Ayurveda, which are vata, pitta, and kapha. Where do those symptoms, feelings fit in? And then what remedies can I use to bring myself into balance? So I'm starting with the vata dosha. Vata, like I said, comprised of air and ether, light, cold, dry, and subtle, so it can really be affecting you without you realizing it. And vata is the essence of wind, and its primary kind of action is change. It's always changing. And if you are being impacted by a lot of travel, a lot of stress, like you're having to be like, oh, I thought we were doing this, and now we're doing this. Oh, now we're doing this. And you're starting to feel like, oh my God, I'm feeling scattered. I'm feeling pulled in all these different directions. That action of change can start to really become like a tornado or a hurricane of wind, and it really starts to break down your emotions, your body, and that's what generates symptoms. So for the vata dosha, ways that you can support that are through eating foods that grow very close to the ground. Because if we think of vata as air and ether, so air and space, atmosphere, there's nothing in the vata dosha that is naturally rooted to the ground. You've got to bring that in to balance that vata dosha and help yourself get more deeply into your body and your heart, especially if fear and anxiety are a couple of the emotions that are really coming up for you. Indecision as well. So foods that grow really close to the earth or that are so heavy that they like, when they're on the earth, they just kind of plump out and become really big and fat, like winter squashes, pumpkin, persimmons, pomegranates are really great, although they're a little bit astringent, but still, I mean, seasonally, they're great at this time of year. Um, if you took all that, if you live in an area where there's a lot of apples on the trees and the apples are so big and heavy that they're literally weighing down the branches, moving towards the earth, you could take that apple and bake it or steam it or saute it with some cinnamon and some ghee or coconut oil and enjoy it that way. Those would all be ways that you support vata dosha through food. And for vata dosha, because it's cold, you want all of your food to be cooked. Because it's dry, you want all of your food to be wet, meaning it's so wet that you've got to serve it in a bowl. Otherwise, it would just spill off the sides. So what kind of food spills off the sides if it's not in a bowl? Soups, stews, really soupy grains. Like one of my favorite things to do is for gut healing, especially, which vatas often have a very sensitive gut. They tend towards constipation. I love to make a warming grain and I'll just cook it like normal. So I'm going to think about one right now of quinoa, cooking a big pot of quinoa, not too big, but enough for the day. And then when I serve it into my bowl, I pour like a lot of ghee over it and or something like olive oil or sesame oil. This Facebook Live is happening in the middle of fall, so I'm really thinking about fall foods in particular right now. And then I might even take a cup of some kind of broth, whether it's bone broth or a garlic miso broth or just a simple immune broth. Actually, I just wrote a recipe for an immunity tea. I'll post it in our group. It's really great. And I've been mixing that with broth. But I'll pour that over my quinoa. So I made a grain, but it's a little bit soupy, but not completely, right? I don't personally don't want to drown my quinoa in liquid. I still want the texture and the hardiness of the grain when I'm chewing it. But that's a way that I'll do it. And it's so wet and nourishing and warm. And then for the vata dosha as well, we're staying in that same concept of wet and warm. There's really almost no better practice than rubbing warm oil into your skin. And what I recommend that you do, I say this in almost all of my lives, anytime I teach this, is you are supporting your immune system, which is the same system as your lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system runs one way. It goes up your body towards your heart. It goes up from your fingertips to your heart. It goes down from the crown of your head to your heart. So no matter where you're starting from on your body, you're moving energy towards the heart when you apply that abhyanga to your skin. And excuse me, the way that I make my abhyanga warm is I have like 3 of them. I always keep a couple extras in case one breaks. But at thrift stores, I have found those little mini crock pots. I've seen them new at department stores also. They're usually somewhere between $10 and $15. But it's a small crock pot. I'll fill it halfway up with water, plug it in, and I'll add hot water when I put the water in. And then I put my bottle of oil in the crock pot, the warm water is heating it up. And that's how I have a warm abhyanga anytime I want it. So, in case you're not familiar with some of the words that I'm using, abhyanga is a Sanskrit word for self-oleation, or, having an oil blend that you're going to rub all over your body. And the best oils for the Vata dosha are going to be the most warming ones. So, sesame is really great. Safflower is a very good one for the Vata dosha, who tends to be cold, light, and dry. And also, I really like jojoba for the Vata dosha. It's technically a wax, so it really acts as a preservative. But think about it: if Vata is so thin and cold and light and dry, like the veil between Vata and the rest of the world is pretty thin, to the point where they're really so sensitive to all kinds of light and heat and touch. Having a preservative as part of your oil blend is really smart. So, um, yeah, so that's kind of it for the Vata dosha. I see that Amy asked a question. We've had a lot of wet weather in the Northeast for the past month, some cool to cold, but definitely not dry. Is that still Vata weather because it varies, or is it more Kapha? Well, the weather itself, if I were to isolate, like just looking at what the weather is doing, I would say that the weather is definitely more Kaphic at the moment, because it's kind of cool, it's not always cold, and it's definitely wet, but you are still in Vata season. And I don't even really know, I don't know how to describe it with words, because I know that, we all of us on this, watching this live, are all over the world. And I mean, for some of you, if you're watching from Australia, you're like, it's spring for me. Which is energetically like the opposite of fall. Um, but if you're in the northern hemisphere, you are in the Vata season, and you can't deny that. Like, there is just in nature, the trees are losing their leaves. We are not yet in the time of planting seeds. We are in the kind of the late harvest, dying back towards the earth before we're officially in the Kapha season. And so, even if it's kind of wet outside, be grateful for that, because it's helping, helping you be a little bit more protected in the Vata season, that it's not so dry outside. But you are still in the Vata season. So let's move on to another dosha. So Pitta is the dosha that is comprised of fire and water. And we're always thinking, then, once we know the elements of a dosha, what are its qualities? Because that's what we relate to. We relate to qualities of elements, not the elements themselves. It's like, oh, I'm fire. What does that mean? It means you're hot. You might have sharp pain. When you get angry, you really get angry, and you might even have such intensity in your personality that you literally like penetrate people and scare people. That's a common Pitta quality, because fire is penetrating. It spreads. It's so powerful. It's the most destructive element on earth. It's also the most destructive element in the body, and that's why we want to always be watching out for inflammation getting out of control, because inflammation is fire on fire, and it's just too much fire. But everybody needs fire. Everybody needs all five of Ayurveda's five elements. And you cannot just be one dosha. You're not just Vata, just Pitta, just Kapha. You can have a very, very strong constitutional, leaning towards one of the doshas, but you wouldn't be alive if you didn't have aspects of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in your constitution, and in your present constitution as well, how you're feeling now. So, but fire is not the only element in the Pitta dosha. It's also water. And when water and fire come together, there's a lot of things that get created. Steam is one. Oil is another. If the fire is burning so hot, it can evaporate all the water. If the water is, getting really flooded, it can put out the fire. So we've got to look at pitta as being a little bit more complicated than just fire alone, because water or liquid, when pitta transforms matter into something else, it transforms it into liquid inside the body. So how to support your dosha through food when pitta is in the forefront is to, you know, definitely be thinking about cooling the fire, especially when it's really overheated. Um, and also, you know, so in the scenario where the fire is making the water evaporate, well, that's going to create dryness. So if you sweat a lot, which is a common symptom for pitta, if you get chronic headaches or chronic migraines, that's another common symptom for pitta. If you get sharp pain, really anywhere in the body, but even especially like cramping around your period or with food, the pain often indicates that there's a pitta imbalance or an excess of pitta going on. So those soothing, cooling foods really help, and also hydration really helps. So one of my favorite remedies for pitta using food and drink is something like coconut water. It's nature's electrolyte. It's going to replenish what you sweated out. It's really rich in magnesium, potassium, um, all of nature's electrolytes, but it's also so, soothing and so deeply hydrating. So I love that, but I might even add to that. I might even grate some fresh cucumber into that and muddle some fresh mint leaves into that. And now I have kind of this coconut water mocktail that is super good for pitta, reducing the pitta dosha or balancing the pitta dosha. I might even put a splash of aloe vera juice in there, because aloe vera is this super nourishing bitter that pulls excess fire from the body, particularly from the gut. But it also, because it also does work so kind of so well on pulling excess fire from the gut, it creates downward motion, and that can help reverse the direction that fire's going when you've got headaches or migraines, because that's fire rising in the body the same way that it does in a house. In terms of daily supportive practices for pitta, there's a tool that I especially love called a gua sha. I'm actually going to go grab one and show it to you. I didn't bring one over. I'm doing the Facebook Live on my bed. So this is a gua sha, and gua shas are not only made from wood. Those of you who are in my Rad Cleanse already know all this, but gua shas are sometimes made from wood. These are handmade by my teacher's husband and people that he has trained and taught how to make these. You can also get them made out of bone. You can also find them made of stone, like jade or rose quartz. One of my clients gave me a rose quartz one that I really love. All kinds of stones. I love the wood ones because they're so durable. If you drop it in the bath or the shower, it's not going to break the way that some of the stone ones will. And the reason this is so great for pitta especially, and for balancing pitta is very muscular. One of their core issues is control. Like, lots of pittas are very controlling people. They think everyone else is doing it wrong. They're the only ones who are doing it right. They just get really caught in their fire, and control is muscle, or muscle is control, right? You need to use control to use your muscles. So the gua sha digs into the muscle bed of your tissue. I don't know if you can see this, maybe my upper arm, but like, I'm really getting in there. And when you've got stagnation or toxins or too much lactic acid in your tissue, in your muscles, you will literally scrape it out with this tool. And at the same time, you're giving your muscles this deep massage. And one of the things Pitta needs more than anything is to chill out and let go and stop stressing about everything. So one thing I love to do for my Pitta peeps is get in here on the jawline, to release holding in the mandible, which is where we hold resentment. If I've got someone with a hormone imbalance, I'm going to have them gua sha underneath the jawline like this. Oh my God, it feels so good. Right? So you can even affect endocrine system by where you gua sha. And speaking, going back to that lymph support that we were talking about when I was talking about the Vata dosha of rubbing the oil into your body, what if you then went over that with a tool like this and really got to drive the oil into your tissues and also release, release stagnation, constriction out of your muscle bed, and just generally be more relaxed as a result, but also so much more open. And when there is a lot of inflammation, one of the things that's missing is oxygen, right? Oxygen is like the most anti-inflammatory thing on the planet. So this is a way to get your breath moving, to open up spaces in the body that then brings more oxygen into your blood. That filters out into every one of your tissues and every one of your organs, and just has you be healthier overall. So I really really love this tool for pittas. And just so you know, my Talia's Kitchen shop is officially up on my website. I'm so excited. So you can now order these on my website, these wooden ones that are so awesome. So Christina is asking, what if you relate to all three of them? Well, you should, because I'm Vata Kapha, but like I have to deal with Vata, Pitta, and Kapha because I'm comprised of all three, and so are you. So, if you're asking the question more from, I don't know what I am, like I don't know what my constitution is, stay in my group and you will find out. You will get chances to look more deeply at that from a lot of different angles. Um, you know, I'm going to tell you a story really quick. So when I first got introduced to Ayurveda, it was at my yoga teacher training in 2001. We took a written test to be like, what's your dosha? I had just learned about Ayurveda like 5 minutes earlier. I didn't know anything about it. And I was answering the questions, and I was answering from my subjective viewpoint of what I think I look like and, what symptoms were happening for me in that moment. And I took the test and I came out with being Pitta Kapha. Well, Pitta Kapha is not my dosha. Vata Kapha is my dosha. But I didn't know how to answer the questions. I didn't know how to look at myself in an objective way to be able to answer them. So, we're going to do another Nourish Your Body with Ayurveda boot camp in January. And I lead you through a couple of deeper practices. I still give you a quiz to take because I can't be in person with all of you at once, like in person. But there are definitely some things to look at beyond just like, what do you feel right now? That's not your constitution necessarily, because you're born with your constitution. It never changes for your whole life unless you like die and come back to life, and maybe your constitution changes. But for the most part, that doesn't happen. So you've got your core constitution. This is who you are when you were born. And then you've got where you live, what you eat, how stressed you are, the kind of people that you surround yourself with, how toxic you are, how healthy your emotional life is. And all of those external factors, they build on to, who you become. But we in Ayurveda, we're getting to the root of who you really are. So you can have symptoms that are from these external forces they're not symptoms that are related to who you are at your core. And that's one of the things I love the most about Ayurveda is cutting to the core of who are you really, and like like basically pulling off all of the crap that isn't you and getting you to be the healthiest, most balanced, most energized, most radiant version of yourself. That, I believe, is what Ayurveda is for. So, Christina, I hope that answers your question. And then for my kapha people, and I was just talking about this with some friends the other day. Most women over 40 who come to see me for private consultations, they usually come in saying like, I know I'm vata. I'm sorry, I know I'm kapha. I'll be like, okay, well, why do you think that? Oh, because I've gained so much weight, or I'm just so heavy. But hormonally, for most of us are between the ages of 35, 40, maybe 45 if you're really fortunate, we go through some hormonal changes that has us not be as flexible and as kind of durable in the overall way that we metabolize food and even metabolize hormonally. And so a lot of times if you're not on a really great path that totally works for you, kapha starts to accumulate. But it can accumulate whether it's your birth pulse, your core constitution, or if it's just your present imbalance. So it's very common at a certain age to think that you're kapha when you really might not be. You might just have a kapha imbalance, which goes back to what I'm saying of, you really can just kind of peel away the layers that are not you. And that's how, Ayurveda can be so miraculous for so many people, because it helps you get to the root of who you are. So, if I think what happens for kapha is comprised of earth and water. So it can be real heavy. It can be real stagnant and sluggish. And the emotional realm of kapha is depression and melancholy, and there's grief is there again, greed, because it's like almost a fear of there not being enough even though there's plenty. So the kapha dosha can feel really heavy, and because of that, when we're looking at food to nourish and support kapha, we want to make sure that the food is light enough to help kapha again kind of have that oxygenation, that spaciousness in their tissues and in their digestive system, so that their metabolic fire, their metabolic energy is as strong as it can be. So we do, for the most part with kapha, try to eat foods that will lighten the load. And that could look like putting lots of spices on your food at every meal, things like cinnamon, turmeric, cumin, cardamom, asafoetida, black pepper, chopping up some raw onion and throwing that on top. There's so many different things that you could do with the spice realm to help lighten kapha's load. And really, I'm serious when I say spices at every meal. Like, it really, the more consistent that you bring these lightening factors in, the better it will be for that kapha dosha. Another thing is, kapha, in the fall, because we're in the heart of fall, I don't really recommend too many salads at this time of year, because salads are cold and a little bit drying, and that's what's already happening with the weather. But if you are truly kapha predominant, salad, a little bit of salad, or even 30 to 40% salad on your plate, along with some cooked food or soup or something, broth, something like that, that can be really good for you because it lightens your load, right? I keep saying that, but it brings that oxygenation in. It can fill you up, but it's not really heavy. So it supports that fiber, really supports your elimination. It supports you feeling full without being full calorically. And another thing that really works for kapha food wise is eating the vegetables that and fruits that grow above the ground, like higher up. And especially when they have some spice to them, because spice breaks through that heavy, dense quality that is kapha. So things like bok choy and, raspberries, um, pomegranate seeds. What else? I was thinking of a specific vegetable. It's not coming to me now. I love the bok choy though because it is so kind of a little bit spicy. Cabbage could be therefore kapha, broccoli, cauliflower, dark leafy greens. Here I go. Um, and then the pungent roots like onion, garlic, leek, shallots, ginger, turmeric. Those are all so great for kapha. And then in terms of daily supportive practices, I could look at this gua sha again and recommend this. But you know what I really love for kapha is salt scrubs or dry brushing. So dry brushing can kind of be the first layer, feet to heart, hands to heart, uh, warrior lymph to heart. But then salt scrub is basically taking an abhyanga, like what I talked about in the beginning of this live, and adding that to just plain refined sea salt, not the super coarse salt that will definitely hurt your skin, but just the plain refined sea salt. You mix it up until it's a paste, kind of like wet sand. And then you get into the shower or the bath without getting your body wet. So you might turn on the water just so you know it's going to be hot when you turn it back on. Turn it off, step into the shower or the bath, and salt scrub from your feet to your heart, your hands to your heart. You can also get your neck and your chest and under your breast tissue, get your lower back, your hips. Like it's such a great way for kapha to get some exercise and to get some blood moving because you're like, and every time you apply the salt scrub, you'll see that your blood is affected because your skin will turn a little bit pink and then you keep moving. So you scrub, turn pink, you move on. You scrub, you turn pink, you move on. And I don't salt scrub every day by any means, but there are definitely days where I'm like, especially around my period, where I might be like, wow, I really feel kaphic. I feel really heavy. I feel like somehow suddenly I gained 10 pounds between last night and this morning. And so when that is happening, it's one of the first things that I'll turn to is a salt scrub because it just helps me feel like I'm getting things on the move. It literally improves circulation. When circulation is improved, you have more oxygen. When you have more oxygen, you breathe more deeply. When you breathe more deeply, your lymphatic system works better. You digest your food better, and you feel lighter and you feel more like yourself. Because really, feeling like ourselves is feeling good. I mean, I think everyone, even if you don't put it in that framework for yourself, a lot of people tell me, like, I just want to feel good or I want to feel like myself again. Well, what does that mean? And it means, feeling like I am taken care of, I am supported, I have good energy, my thoughts are pretty positive. I feel like I can be there for other people as well as being there for myself. And to me, that's you being at the best version of yourself. So I'll say one more thing for the kapha dosha, just to make sure I'm giving it equal time. Another daily supportive practice that I love for kapha is drinking fresh ginger tea all day long. And if ginger isn't your thing, then any kind of pungent spiced tea can work great. Even sometimes I'll even do like I'll boil some water with I'll simmer it with a little bit of garlic and cayenne pepper and put some lemon juice in there and a little bit of tiny little bit of raw honey, and it's just a stimulating drink. So if anyone can handle stimulants, it's the kapha dosha, but natural caffeine-free stimulants that are more pungent in nature are going to be the ones that kapha the most. So seeing if there's any more questions. Doesn't look like there is. I hope you got a lot out of our live today. I just was riffing off some of the questions that some of you had asked in our group over the last couple of weeks. So next week, the Facebook Live is going to happen on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And if you can make it there live, please do. I have a special guest, and we're going to be talking about Ayurveda and abundance. So it's going to be a super, super really cool Facebook Live. I'll say a little bit more about it in our group, and I will remind you so you don't have to just remember right now. But I hope to see you there. And thanks so much for watching. This is Talia Lutzker from Ayurveda Every Day with Talia. If you're watching this on YouTube and you are not yet part of the Ayurveda Every Day Facebook group, it's free and you are so welcome. We would love to have you there. So see you next time.